webinar series of heritage and conservation. As we all know, India is a country which is so rich in its art and culture, and more so the architectural heritage. This idea of a webinar on heritage and conservation came to my mind, and I was lucky enough to get a consent of eminent speakers from like architect Uddayan Natu sir, architect Ibrahim Patros sir, architect Vipul Varshne sir, Vipul Varshne madam from Lucknow, and my own professor Savita Raje from Manet Bhopal. They are all going to contribute in this series, and I am very positive about the inputs which we will be getting in this series by the eminent speakers. Now I would like to introduce architect Uddayan Natu, a distinguished doyen of architecture in central India, who began his professional career under the guidance of renowned architect Padma Shri Achyut Kanvinde sir, and joined his own firm KV Natu and Associates at Indore in 1987. His works combine a sense of intricacy and it substantiates its style. He extended the scope of his practice throughout India, and he has a collaborative architectural firm, Natu and Saeed Designs, in Dubai. In this webinar, you are going to see how architecture is a matrix of civilization, an authentic measure of social status, and an expression of ethos of an era. Here I would like to quote some words of architect Uddayan Natu. The synthesis of different culture gave birth to a new architectural style, and Mandu is a treasure of Indo-Islamic architecture. Let's follow and understand the story of timeless glory of the ruins. So, sir, now the floor is yours, and let us get benefited by your presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Nair sir, for invitation for this webinar. Thank you, Mahida madam, for nice coordination for this event. And today's topic, which we have titled, is Exploring Indo-Islamic Architecture in Provincial Period of Mandau. Mandau is known for their provincial period Indo-Islamic architecture. The provincial period means it starts in 14th and 15th century. Although Mandau is having an history way back to 2nd and 3rd century, right, the time from Satavahanas and Badami Chalukyas, but the evidences of civilization and art started taking place in 5th century. That is at the time of feudators of Gupta period. Then these Hindu dynasties continued till 12th century. Till then, Mandau was one of the pilgrimage places with lot of temples, and the main capital that time was Dhar. But in 12th century, first Islamic invasion happened in Malwa region. As Mandau is placed in Malwa region, and the second wave of early 13th century, that is at the time of Iyanul Mulk, who attacked this place and conquered this entire region, and then this Malwa and the central India went under the rule of Tughlaqs. Then the story starts of the Mandau of Indo-Islamic architecture is from the 14th century. That time, one of the governors of Tughlaq dynasty, Daulat Khan, was.
I request all the participants to please mute your mic.
Yeah, that will better. Yeah. So in 14th century, the first after this, the governor declared himself as the Sultan of this place, Dilawar Khan Gori. He was the person who first started with hand structures and declared Mando as his own capital. And from here, the story of Mando starts, the glorious Indo-Islamic architecture. In this, if you will, I will start off with the structures. See, Dilawar Khan Gori was the first invader. I will first give you a little idea where the Mando is, how it is situated, and then we can go through the structures which has been done in different sultans who are starting from 14th century to 15th century. Those were from Dilawar Khan Gori to Hoshang Shah, then from Hoshang Shah to Mahmud Khilji, then the Khilji dynasty started, and that ended up to the 15th century, that is pre-Mughal time. Now, Mando is an place which is stated on Malwa region, Malwa Plateau, which is on the Vindhyachal range. And it is nearly having a sea height of 634 meters above mean sea level. That is pretty high plateau with a moderate climate. Is now, for example, the Baroda is hardly 123 meters, whereas the Nimar plateau is 150, and having a vertical of nearly 376 meters on all the sides. So this place was more like an peninsula. I'll show you another picture that will give you more idea about it. Yeah. This is the peninsula which is jetting out of Vindhyachal range towards south, having an verticals on all the sides. So what happens? Time of Dilawar Khan, the major administrative place was in Dhar, but then he decided to take over this place, which was strategically more stronger and geographically also a very certain place, because this place was having a flat plateau on top, having an verticals on all the sides, and on this flat plateau there were undwellings. That was creating lot of cluster lakes above the flat plateau. So that was the ideal place for making a residential fort, which will be more secure place in this region. And in this, if you can see that you are having an verticals on all the sides, only a bottleneck, which is from the northern side, you are having an entry to this entire fort. Now, Dilawar Khan was having a very a small regime of only 6 years. After that, his successor Hoshan Shah took the place, and Dilawar Khan was. See, this is the map which gives you a little idea where the Mando is situated. You can see that time Champaner was an important place. In Rajasthan, Chittorgarh was another important place. Delhi Sultanate, of course, it was a ruling place in our days, and Gondwana states was also there. And this Malwa was on the Silk Road, which was from Khambhat, from Gujarat. The trade route used to come from Champaner, ended up to the central Deccan area, passing through Mando. So Mando becomes an important thing place also, and it was a rule for the provincial period time with the Gori dynasty. So we see this is the rural period that starts from the 10th century, ended up to 1750. But for us, the important rulers were from 14 to 15, who were the pre-Mughal times. So these were the Gori initially with the Dilawar Khan and Hoshan Shah, and then the Khilji dynasty with Mahmud Yasuddin Khilji, then his successor son Nasruddin, and the Mahmud II. These were the people who were pre-Mughal time. So what is the importance of pre-Mughal time? The importance is that these kingdoms which has developed here was having a lot of influence from the Persian side, because they were having a basic from Persia, Turkmenistan, another Khiljis, those were coming from Pashtun, that is Afghani style. So when we talk about an Islamic style, that means we are having a combination of Pashtun architecture, Afghani architecture, Turkish architecture, and Persian. Now, when we go through the monuments, we'll understand more about how it was getting gelled with these two civilizations. The Hindu civilization was already here, and this new kingdom was having the styles which they had taken it from Persia. Now, At this time, Dilawar Khan initially he fortified this fort. So this fort, the fort itself is having a perimeter of nearly 64 kilometers, and the area of Mando Fort above the top plateau is of 47 square kilometers. So it's a huge residential fort, and because of its strategic position, it has gained a glory for coming 2 centuries. So Dilawar Khan come up with the gates which were there at different positions. Only what they have to take care was on the bottleneck side. So they were having the 5 gates, and other gates were at another strategic positions. But now we will go to the photographs of different monuments. Here in Mando, there are 61 monument clusters which are recognized by Government of India, Archaeological of India, and there are many more monuments which are what we can call it as an obscured monuments. And we as a Nathu Foundation and our friends volunteers are working on exploring all those regions also. Now we'll see very first building. The very first building is of Mosque of Dilawar Khan. So Dilawar Khan has built a mosque in a very short period of only years, and he was the first ruler who fortified this place, made a here, and named this place called Shadiabad. Now here you see the first example, a very primitive example of Indo-Islamic architecture. What we mean by Indo-Islamic architecture is Indo-Islamic architecture means having a fusion of two different types of styles, different types of materials, their culture, their structural details, and you can see how the Islamic Indo-Islamic architecture also gone through different types of shades. Now here you can see it is more Indo and less Islamic, because here you can see these pillars. This type of structure you must have also seen in Gujarat and Champanen. These pillars are of more for the Jain temples. So the initial structures, what they used to do, either they used to use the few members from the debris of mandir or any other Hindu structures or Jain structures. So clearly here you can see these columns which has been used are of the Hindu style. Even the brackets and above flat lintel with flat slab is typical Hindu style. Only thing what they had done is the idols and the graphics which was present there on walls, it has been slashed. So that was the very first era when they were having a combination of these two, because after means now in Hosham Shah time, you will see lot of craftsmen and architects and their designs, those were borrowing from Persia and Turkey also. But here what you see is more influence of Indian style structures with use as a mosque. So they were having a wall of Qibla. This here you can see only the Islamic graphics, which is that is of the arch, with little use of marble here. Here they had used three types of materials. The local material which was available was granite in the fashion, what we call it as an basalt stone. The cladding is done in sandstone and little use of marble. So sandstone and marble, they were getting it from the Rajasthan, and the local stone which was available was in Malwa Plateau itself. Now, the second successor of Dilawar Khan was the Hoshan Shah. Hoshan Shah has given a real identity to Mandavgarh. He has come up with a beautiful two literally gigantic monuments. One of them was Hoshan Shah's tomb, his own tomb. The importance of this structure as an Indo-Islamic architecture in provincial time, this is pre-Mughal time. How much? That this structure, which is in white marble cladding, is, this is nearly 180 years before Taj Mahal. Taj Mahal has been built after taking an inspiration from this place. There is an inscription written here on this stone on the northern side of wall that Shah Jahan, when visited this place, he also invited his architect So the name of architect is also inscribed here. That is very interesting part. That is Ahmed Lori with his team has visited this place, studied this tomb, and after studying this tomb, he got the inspiration to design a Taj Mahal. And you can see the similarities also. Like Taj Mahal is also having four cupolas on the sides with the central dome. And here, it was the first marble pyramid structure. And here you can see the elements which are of the more predominantly Persian style, having an cupolas. Then Indian style, what you are having is the kangura necks. Then you are having the brackets and chajjas, mashrabiyas on the walls. You can get an panoramic view also. Now, when we say a fusion, so fusion is many times with the structure as well as with campuses. Now, here you can see this campus is also having a structure at the backside. This structure is totally in an Hindu style with the flat roof and Hindu columns, and this structure is in Persian style. So, in they had added a new aesthetics in this area, having combination of Persian, Rajputana, and local Hindu style aesthetical elements. Again, this is another view of the tomb itself. So these tombs, yeah, by tombs you can make a time era or the styles also. I will show you a few sketches. Here you can see, after this period, Mughal time, the tombs were more pointed domes. They used to have the inverted lotus on the top. But till then, this technology or this type of an design were not present here. This is the pre-Mughal time. So they used to have ellipsoidal domes as well as in few monuments, you will also see the umbrella domes, which are a typical signature of Islamic architectural domical style. Even from inside, it is totally a marble cladded dome with a Persian blue squinches and arches. You can see even the type of an blue color, the Persian blue. It's a magnificent structure. Of course, in picture you will get hardly a little idea about this structure, but in reality, when you see these buildings, only two colors has been used in this building. That is one is white, that is the white marble, which they have taken from Makrana, and the blue color, which was their favorite color, which they were taking from Persia. So Persian blue and white color building. These were the squinches. The way, see, this technology has come with the Islamic way of making the domes. That is, the building used to be square in plan. Then they used to have octagon above it, making the squinches with the load is shared through the arches. Then octagon used to have another multiple squinches that used to give a circle, and then the circular dome above. So majority of structure you will find this type of an spanning which has done, which was that time absolutely a unique way of structural combination. Because till then India was more with their own Hindu type of an architecture and Shikhara style, what we call it as the Vimanas. Now, here again, you can see the Mashrabiyas. Jali work was again their way of signature, which used to always be in graphics, and that gives a pretty good Tandal effect also to this. Now, in the same campus, here you will see again a structure with Hindu way of columns and lintels. And here the story is different. See, what you had seen in Dilawar Khan, those were the hired columns, dismantled columns from the temples. Here they had used the fresh columns, but having the design in the same pattern of Indian or Jain, with only a very little graphic which was accepted in their Islamic culture. So here you can see that means when we say any combination, so just to respect each other craftsmanship. Second thing, even if they are hiring an architects and craftsmen from other places, local craftsmen were also respected for giving a birth to new combinations. This is another view of the Hoshan Shah stone. It's a magnificent building, must visit building. This is the moonlight view. The white marble looks marvelous. Now, Hosam Shah in 14th century, the way I say that these structures are much, means nearly 200 years before Taj Mahal time. He has come up with a white marble structure along with the backdrop with an huge Jama Masjid. So this Jami Masjid, here again the inscription has been written that this Jami Masjid was having an inspiration taken from Masjid of Damascus, which is in Syria. So then when we tried to study that Masjid of Syria, we found that these multiple cupolas, which they look like an texture to itself in aerial view and look marvelous in skyline. This multiple cupola were spanning the entire 5 LA structure in the masjid with a central courtyard, which they used to call it as an sahan. So this courtyard itself is of 28,000 square feet. And here they were having a triple dome structure. In Mandau, majority of masjid you will find Teen Gumbaj Masjid. So this was the style which they have developed. They used to have three Gumbaj on the western side, which we call it as a wall of Qibla, and the entrance they were having a central dome. See, this is the structure. Again, you see a beautiful combination of typical Syrian small domes with an combination of bigger domes. These smaller domes are how many domes? These are 158 domes which were present there with these three majestic domes. And these domes are also having a rib pattern. See, when as a student or even as an architect, when we see any building, the building itself tells us, tells us about the era, tells us about the style which they have adopted from different places. So these domes, you will see as if the rope has been put on all the sides. So these are called it as a rib domes. And these rib dome structures are coming from the Uzbeki style of domes. This is the front avenue of this place. What we call it as an Ivan. Ivan means the uh, central avenue from where we enter the places. Now, other masjid which you see in other part of country in India, they are having three entrances and one side with wall of Qibla. Whereas here in Mando, all masjids are having only a central single entry structure. Now, if I zoom this structure, again you see a beautiful combination of both. You are having an Islamic arches along with a little use of Persian tiles in this. And here you can see this lintel gives you a little shade of Indian style of opening, having a flat lintel with brackets and even the links around it. This is again on the central part. I will go little faster because there are so many monuments we like to cover. This is the inner part of that new masjid, having a mimbar on one side. Mimbar is in pure Makrana marble with typical Rajputana style. So what used to happen that these emperors used to hire uh, architects, designers from Rajasthan, used to hire architects, designer from uh, Persia, and then they were having a healthy relations. That's what we can see here. That although initially these two civilizations had fought with each other, but once they become one, they had come up with a new type of an civilization and new type of an architecture that gives a new dimension to an architecture called it as an Indo-Islamic architecture. Again, here you can see, here also you can see, it is a marble structure with black marble and white marble. Can you see this column? Huh? These columns are more like Jain columns, which you see in Jain temples. So they were having the columns in that side. They were used for their own Islamic ritual purposes. You can again see the mashrabiyas with Tandal effect. It's a very complex design. This structure, Jami Masjid, is a huge structure having a double story building on the western side with an mezzanine floors. These mezzanine floors were used for ladies sitting. That they used to call it Janana pavilions, and that mezzanine structure was with green walls. This is again a very interesting structural design which has been adopted here in India, which was coming from Pashtun style. They were having the green walls which were combined and giving a structural stability to the mezzanine floor. Now this is another structure. This is another structure which is of the Malik Mutik. So Malik Mutik was not the Sultan, but he was friend of Hoshan Shah, and his son eventually became the Sultan of this place, who was Muhammad Khilji. So for two dynasties, it was with the Gori time, and then the thing has been handed to Khiljis. Khiljis has come up with again a magnificent monuments. One of them was Malik Mutik's mosque. Here you can see a perfect combination of Indo-Islamic architecture. Having you can see the torrents on the sides. This torrent is not exactly these are the small minars which are on the corners. This style was coming from the Pathani style of architecture, having the torrents with a central entry, with an huge courtyard inside, and here you can see the Ivan, which is from the front. I'll show you another detail. Yes, this is very interesting again. Here now what has happened, that in Dilawar time you had seen that they had made use of the columns of the same structure. And here they had taken the design from these columns and made up a new type of an columns. Here you can see these columns are having a brackets even at 45 degrees. Why? Because they were trying to have a upper structure as a dome. Whereas in India, all these columns are basically for the rectangles. So they are having an bracketal lintel brackets, giving a new arch like a squinch so that they can have an octagon on top. Again, the ornamentation and the brackets and the column design are of more Hindu style, whereas this arches which you are seeing is absolutely an Islamic arches. Even this building was having a colorful inlay on all splendors. So here you can see the inlay work which has been done again in a blue and other things. And then later on, in later period buildings, we'll see more colors also. We are having also yellow and red colors in this building. Again, this is the very typical bracket which you can see, which you hardly see in Indian style, because Indian style you are having rectangles, so you are having only four brackets, whereas they are having an fried offshoots coming from the column. They had made use of the columns which are from the Hindu style in the mosque, the series of columns for all the base were the Hindu style, whereas the column was of the domes were of the Afghani style domes inside. Again, it was also having the three gumbaj. Then this is the third building, which is right in front of Malik Mutik. See, in Mandau, what happens that because it's a flat plateau and it's a pretty well oriented flat plateau, the different sultan has made complexes at different places. So there are clusters of complexes. So this sarai, what they call it as an Karwa Sarai. So Karwa Sarai, again, Sarai concept itself is a very coming from Baghdad side, that is the Arabic side, where they used to have only a single entry with a huge courtyard inside and directs on all the sides, the smaller rooms on all the four sides, having an entry from the single side for the sake of security. And they used to have the trading of cattle or even horses and elephants. So they used to need a huge central courtyard and the resting place around. And in Mando, there are at least 7 to 8 sarai of different era and different styles. Then after Hoshan Shah's time, when Mahmud first came to the rule. Here, the importance is that Mahmud too was more fond of wars rather than going for more constructions. Whereas Hoshan Shah was more with an architecture giving and some architectural monuments. Mahmud I has made his own tomb and one victory tower. I will show you just a few photographs. This is only the facade of the tomb is remaining now. The entire glass building is demolished because of the uh, natural hierarchies. Now here you can see only the ruins of this are there, but whatever the ruins which you find also with a beautiful combination of structure. See, they had made use of the arches as a structure to span to make the shape changes. The squinches, here you can see the squinches with lot of layer. So making the squinches also interesting. This structure was again in a marble, but now only single story structure is remaining. Here, what dome which you are seeing is of the mosque. These are the ruins of the Mahmud Khilji, that is the Ashrafi Mahal, what we call it as. I will show you another photograph. In the same Ashrafi Mahal, here you can see a base of some minar. Now this minar was the victory tower. Now only ground floor structure is remaining, and this building was seven-storied building. Seven-storied building constructed in 14th century. This time was 14, I will say 1436. This time he was having a fight with Rana Kumbha of Chittorgarh. And the very interesting story that they both at Mansoor and both went back to their own places without any results. And both constructed a Vijay in their area. What Vijayastam you see in Chittorgarh today and the Ashrafi Mahal Vijayastam in Mando has been constructed for the same purpose. So that is interesting. This is what also happens many times in history, that the purpose might be same, and that's why the history become important. After Mahmud I has spent his entire time in wars. He extended the Mandu capital and their province right up to Chanderi in north, and he conquered Ranthambore. He was having an entire area of Dakhan. So he has expanded his area pretty well. Even in Chanderi, whatever structures which you see, like Badal Mahal and other things, all those structures are of the Sultan from Mando, that is Mahmud I. And because of the stable structure of victory, what has happened that his son was having a leisure, was having a more luxurious time. So again, the important thing that when you see the structures, when you see different types of structures, it depends on the socio-economical condition of that time also. Dilawar Khan was having a short time. Hoshan Shah ruled for 30 years, whereas Dilawar Khan ruled only for 6 years. Then Mahmud ruled for 34 years, but he had given more time for expansion of this building. And whatever two, three buildings which he has created, that is Ashrafi Mahal and Vijayastam, both big buildings are now only in the ruin status, probably because of the negligence of that time in structural designs. That time also they used to have those structural failures because the buildings before that are also standing. Now, his son, Giyasuddin Khilji, he is a very known person, very popular person at this place because he has not fought a civil war, but he has devoted his time in making a wonderful structures for himself and now for us today. So this aerial view which you are seeing is of the Jahaj, which is a very well-known place in this area. You are having the three lakes around this entire royal palace complex. This is the Jahaj Mahal. So this is the very signature of the Mando. Whenever we say of Mando, people remember of Jahaj Mahal and Roopati Palace. We'll end up with Roopati just down. we'll see the Jahaj Mahal. This is a structure which is having a nice, very delicate Persian style of chhatri dome on top. Adoption of Jharokhas and Chhatris in Rajputana style, and it was located in such a way that it was having the lakes on all the three sides, which always used to give them a floating effect. That's why they used to call it as a Jahaj Mahal. Now, the importance of this is that because Ghiyasuddin Khilji was having a more splendid time to expand his harem, he has constructed building like Jahaj Mahal, Hindola Mahal, Jal Mahal. All these buildings has been constructed in early 15th and late 14th centuries. That is, a few of buildings has been also done by Nasruddin his son. Here again, you can see the flat pavilion. So there are a lot of flat roofs which are there on the top. Here you can see a combination of Persian arches with side domes and Persian type of and Jarokas also, and a Chhatri style which is half Persian and half Rajputana style, having a flat column and a Chhatri-like structure. This is again ornamentation of the overflow of the water tank. It's not a water tank; it's a swimming pool on the terrace. Here in Mando, in Jal Mahal, there are more than a dozen different sizes swimming pools. This is one of the overflow designs. This design you also see in Champaner if you have visited this place, because Mando and Champaner were having of trade relations as well as political relations also. Muzaffar Shah has been here for 2 years. Then Ahmad Shah was also here in late. This is another structure which called it as a Hindola Mahal. Hindola Mahal
Yes,
is
sir,
called it as
Janvi.
a Diwane Khas. Here, the structure you can see there are the buttressed walls with the slopy Pathan arches also. So again, a very beautiful example of use of Islamic style of buttress walls with an arches, and then the brackets and chazza above this. The superstructure is now not in existence, but this structure, again, this structure is also having a very interesting story, like what you have seen in Vijayastham, that Vijayastham of Chittorgarh is also for the same reason. Whereas here you will see another story that this building, a similar building are also in being constructed in Warangal. I will show you the picture of that also. Here you can see the ribbed wall. This is a typical Arabic fashion of wall with Jarokha. Jarokha, this element itself, we are getting from Rajputana style. Yeah, very interesting thing. At a first glance, you will see that this both structures are same. But this structure is in central India, that is on Malwa Plateau, Hindola Mahal in Mando. Whereas this is Kushak Mahal, which is in Warangal. Same arches, same type of a design, and at the same era. So when you study the history, many times you find not only the trade, not only the language, not only the things, even the designs are also, even the designers are also hired, and with little changes, they also adopt the building which are having the same type. So Kushak Mahal is in Warangal, pretty long away in south, whereas Hindola Mahal is in Mandau in central India. Yeah, this is again a real view of harem. So harem of Ghiyasuddin Khilji was having, say, 15,000 ladies were there in his harem because he was having a very luxurious time. He has also written few good books on cook, that they call it as a Nimatnama. So he was fond of glamour. He was having harem with hammams. He was having harem with auditorium and multiple swimming pools. So, so to go through this entire residential this residential area itself was of seven-storied structure. Now only three stories are remaining. This is what they call it as a Champa Bauli. This is the water reservoir inside the palace. And this Baudi concept is again a combination of Indo-Aryan. Baudi concept is coming from Hindu style, having the stepped Baudis. I'm going to show you more Baudis, which are here, which are called it as an Andheri Baudi and Ujali Baudi. And Baudi, of course, Gujarat is very aware of that because Gujarat and Rajasthan are having the treasure of Baudis in India. This is Hammam. So hammam itself, the use of it, the type of designs, whatever you are seeing is totally taken from Turkey. And they used to have the skylights in stars and other things. And this hammam were used for the harem of females who were in 15,000 numbers. I will just show you another clip. This is one of the clips from my other presentations, which we take it as an water as an element in Mandau, because Mandau is the place who is having more than a dozen swimming pools, and the use of water has been done for transport, use of water has been done for sports, and so many things. So from this slide, you can get a little idea that these are the reference clips that how these hammams were so beautifully decorated from inside. Now what you see is only ashes of Persian blue tiles and other things. So when we say a fort, many times we feel that fort and palace means different type of only walls and other things. But here, because it's a residential fort, and that is also with the very luxurious time, 14th and 15th century, here has come up with the hammams inside as well as the auditorium. This is the auditorium of that era, having a green rooms and the stage, the way we are having opera houses just now. These are the green rooms. These are the stage with the backdrops. It is said that this building was also having a very good acoustics, but of course, now it is in ruin states. No more roof is available here. Only debris are around. But for us, it is important that when we are going through the ruins of all this residential fort, we have to also imagine that how luxurious time they must have spent and the type of planning. Of course, when we say a fusion of two cultures, so harem, hammam, water bodies, baudis, aqueducts, the name itself tells that few things has been taken from Hindu style, their way of living, few things they had migrated from Turkmenistan and Turkey, and they had come up with a new style of way of living as well as the structures. Now this structure is called the Jal Mahal, which is in the early 15th century. And Jal Mahal, I will show you, this is a long side photo. I will show you. Yes. Here you will get an idea that if you will go to a Jal Mahal, so Jal Mahal doesn't mean a one pond pool or a mahal between the lake. This mahal is having 1 dozen swimming pools in and around. This is one of the pool. Few pools are used for ornamentation. Few pools are used for Olympic size pools are also there. So I have taken this photograph with my volunteers so that you can get an idea of the scale. This is called as a lotus pool. Yes. This is another swimming pool which is there. You can see it is absolutely a long pool, 200 by 20 feet. So even that time, in 15th century, the kings were used to have pools for exercise, pool for sports, pools for enjoyment. So this is another pool which is of an extended 200 feet long. Then you can see another pool again in the same Jal. See, this all is in Jal Mahal complex. There are a few other pools which are in Baj Bahadur Mahal, but Jal Mahal complex itself is having a terrace pool. Here in the second photograph, you can see it's a terrace pool. It is nearly 50 feet above ground level, and they are having a terrace pool. Then this is a tortoise shaped pool, which is a typical this tortoise shape. They used to have it on the grounds. It's a very typical Persian style of arches combination. These are the pools. Again, a rectangular pool with an viewing gallery. That means they were having an water sports or even the sports competitions. They must be taking place at this place. So multiple pool. structure is there in Jal Mahal. And for hammams and other things, you can see the ruins of aqueducts also. Aqueduct is a technology, might be adopted from the Roman style from Europe, and they had used this multiple column system to transport the water from Munj Talab to the harem, and this water used to go through the channels right up to the mm, uh, yeah, your hammams. So this is the pumping station. Pumping station means, of course, they used to have the manual of metal pumping station, and from there through aqueducts they used to have the water. And in the same Jal Mahal, you will see a graphic art which they used to call it as an Kufi sculpts. So this art was more an inlay, and this was a type of an script which they used to uh, use it as an ornamentation, which we rarely see in Indian style. Means we are making less use of script as a decoration, but here in even if they are writing ayatars on the wall, they used to do it in a very floral way or very decorative way, which they used to call it as a Kufic style of painting. Then here is the structure, which is called it as an Baj Bahadur Mahal. But the importance is, again, the story is important. That Ghiasuddin Khilji's son was Nasruddin. Nasruddin was comparatively a cruel person, and he was not very popular in society because he was addicted to drugs like quicksilver. Because of that, because of his that nature, he has also contributed something in architecture, that he has given three different palaces with water bodies, because this quicksilver used to remain in water for longer time. So there is another one Jal Mahal is also here in Mandau, which I had shown you just now, and another Jal Mahal he has created in Sadalpur, which is again nearby Mandau, only hardly 90 kilometers from this place. So what has happened? This is Nasruddin's palace, but because he was not a popular king, the next session king, the Baj Bahadur, when he came, he wasn't popular king. So this mahal was named by Baj Bahadur Palace as such. Again, this palace was again having the pools inside. With here you can see a pure way of Rajputana Chhatris, which you see in the corners. And here a new technology. This is interesting. This is very interesting that we are talking of 15th century. In 15th century, having an air conditioning, or not exactly air conditioning, but cooling of the building has been done so properly that they were having aqueducts even in this Baj Bahadur Mahal. They used to lift up the water from Rewa Kund, and the water used to flow through the top channel, even also through the vertical columns. I will show you one other detail. See, in this detail, you can see these columns were having a cavity columns. So water used to flow through these channels vertically and horizontally to keep the palace cool. So these are important things as a student, as a person to really admire, that they were making use of their technology to their best way, whatever available was in that time in 15th century. Even the cooling also they are taken in so much great way. Then after Nasruddin, the successor was Mahmud II. So he was the successor with poor administration, and the other Medini Rai, Hindu, we can say Wazir of him, took the entire Mando in his control, and Darya Khan was another person who was having a dominant figure in that time. So again, you can see in Mandap, this is another complex which is called as a Darya Khan tomb. It is again of 15th century. Complex means what? He is having his own tomb, a water body, sarai, masjid, and the rest house. So this is the entire complex, and so many water bodies. What you see around the structure are basically a man-made water bodies. They used to dig the place, cut the stone, the same stone they used to use for making the structure, and after digging, they used to border that place and store the water at that place. Because Mandav is only having a source of water is the rains. It is on an average 40 inches of an range. But in spite of that, they were having a prosperous enough water for enjoyment because of the good style of conservation. This is the Daryat Khan's dome. Again, here you can see four cupolas with rib domes. Again, a very typical style of Indo-Islamic architecture, a combination of domes and cupolas with the Rajputana style brackets. Here you see a new introduction of side columns. This is what you also see in Gujarat style of Indo-Islamic buildings. Here you are having side columns which are not structural but more a designer. Again, here they are having an turret on the sides, and here first time when you are moving to Mando with different complexes, here you will see umbrella domes, is having and fruits on the domes. This style was coming from basically Uzbekistan. This is another clip is only for the reference. This is the dome which is in Uzbekistan, and the same type of tiles and colors were also present in all these monuments. You can, if you focus this building at few places, you can see the rashes that these buildings were also having the same designs, but of course now with the season they are decayed. So this is the structure which is of the Darya Khan's dome. Again, a beautiful structure at the same era, that is in the 15th century mid, you can say 26, 27, Medini Rai become an important figure in this political scenario. So again, if you study the history, you come to know that structure has to do something with the political scenario also. Because he was Hindu, you will see few new things which you will find in the structures, although it is Indo Islamic structures. This is called as a Gada Shah's shop. This is the commercial complex of that era. They used to have it's a huge structure, three-storied structure with shopping mall, having a shopping yard inside. Again, with the sarai on one side, buttressed walls. Can you see the grandeur? In photograph, you can get a little idea. Of course, I will like to say that everyone must visit and experience these things. Now see, till then you had seen so many buildings, you had seen so many graphics, but all were absolutely strictly Islamic. But here you can see the elephant figure, the spout in the building, because now Hindu people were also dominantly present in their administration. So you can see even now this photograph. Here also you can get a little idea that even the human figures were there in the Gadasha's residence. So this is a very rare buildings which were having an influence of some figures of animals or the human faces. This is the Ujali Baudi. Ujali Baudi is also present in the complex of Medini Rai. Baudi concept itself is coming from Hindu style. Here you will feel a little like an Baudi, what you see with an Rajasthani pattern, Chhatri on top, and the steps jetting to the Baudi itself. And here you are having both Baudis, Andheri Baudi and Ujali Baudi. So in 15th century, they were also aware of how to preserve and the water and how to purify or preserve for drinking also. So they were also having the Andheri Baudis. So Andheri Baudi is there, Ujali Baudi is there. And now as the time is not exactly up, but yes, I will go to the last building. Yes, this is not the last building. This is one of the buildings. There are 61 buildings of different time and nature. All comes in basically in provincial time, because provincial time, what we call it is 14 and 15. After that, also Mughals were also ruling here. that is Mughal time period. So Mughal time also few buildings are here with gardens and pavilions, and especially Mughals were fond of shikar also. So they were also having shikargah, but that we can see in Mughal time era architecture. In provincial time, what you are seeing is a pure form pre-Mughal time. So this structure is interesting because this is called it as a Rupmati Pavilion. This structure is a three-storied structure, and this three-storied has been designed and constructed in different era. The very first is of 14th century initial time. Then second was early late 14th century time, that is of the Nasruddin time. And when after the Khilji dynasty, when the Sher Shah Suri took place and their feudators ruled this area, that time Baj Bahadur has come up with this chhatris, which is more called as an pavilion. So this is called as a Rupmati Pavilion. This is on the far southernmost area. This is again having an Rupmati, means an Hindu lady Prem Gatha behind it. It's a beautiful structure with, can you see in this photograph also, the chhajjas are ornamental with carving and other things, having an absolute panoramic view to southern side. You can see the panoramic view which is there. Uh, and well, again, Rupmati Pavilion is very known building in Mandau. This is the silhouette of this structure, and I think clock is nearby me. So this gives a little idea about what type of architecture which is present here in Mandau, and me from behalf of Natu Foundation, we had made a foundation here. And many architects, many art lovers, architectural lovers, heritage lovers participate in this. Here we explore more monuments which are in and around these places, because Mando needs a lot of exploration now. That's why we had given the title also Exploring Indo-Islamic. There are many uncharted monuments which now we are trying to find out, which are there in Kutch and in and around this place. And even pre-provincial time Hindu ruins are also here in Budi Mandau. So we go for trekking, we try to find out these things. And very interesting. This treasure of Mandau is worth experiencing. All the seasons are good. I will thank you, Nair sir, once again, and I will, on behalf of Natu Foundation also, I will invite Nair sir, Mahida madam. I will also like to thank Taha for coordinating all things so well. Everything was fine. And I will invite you all to City of Joy, Shadiabad. Hmm? Thank you very much. Hello, madam.
Yeah, thank you so much, sir. It was really an enlightening session, and we are still virtually we are moving in the ruins of the rich ruins of Mandu. I can really feel that.
Thank you.
And I would like to open the house for some questions if somebody
Yeah,
wants
sure.
to ask.
Sure, sure.
Yeah, you can put up your questions in the chat box. And even if you want to unmute yourself and ask them directly to sir, then it's also okay for me. Sir, I had one question.
Yeah, sure.
I just wanted to know about the water connectivity. Like it said, the
Yeah.
Jahaj Mahal. Yeah.
See, water
So-
connectivity means, I will brief you a little. Many times I take presentations here in colleges also, and we had really tried to study water as an element in Mandau, because Mandau is a place which is having a flat area with little undwellings. Means if you see the contour of the entire fort, you are having only two major hills. That is, one is Songarh and another is Kanadia Hill. But because of the undwellings, what has happened that it has created lot of lakes which are at different levels. Means if one lake is at some particular level, another lake is nearly 20 or 30 feet below it. So that time, it's wonderful to really understand the thing that in 14th and 15th century, they studied the topography of Mandav. They selected the place in such a way that they can make use of the upper level water for their utility, and after their utility it can be given to another one, because there is no spring available in this area, there is no
Yes, sir.
river because it is a
Yes,
vertical fort. But
yes, sir.
whatever rainwater which they were having, means just now I had shown you Jahaj. Hmm? Even
Yes,
in
sir.
Jahaj Mahal, they are having flat terraces. So at terraces, water they used to take down with the stack pipes which were of stone, and they used to store the water in the basement. So they used to store each and every drop of water. And because of the level differences, they were in position to play with the water also, still not losing them. So what you see in Jaj Mahal, they are using the water for transport, because Jal Mahal to Jaj Mahal, you can see the docks at the backside. They were
Yes, sir.
using the water as a transport also. They were using the water for the gravitational pull also. And somehow it is one of the best example that how the West is even in today's context, it becomes important that they had conserved the water so well that they were having a population of nearly 7 lakhs on this fort. Very amazing.
Yes, sir. Sir, shall I go to another question?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, sir, there is a question from the one of the attendees. What were the material resources that enriched the architecture of Mandu and
Right.
the architectural styles that influenced the Mandu architecture?
Yes. See, again, when somebody is in center, hmm, that itself becomes very interesting, because Mandau is nearly in central part of India. Rajasthan is very nearby. Gujarat is nearby. Deccan is nearby. So what has happened, because of the trade route and relation, they used to hire many materials from the side. Means the local material which was available here for the construction basically was the basalt stone, that is black stone. Basalt stone
Yes,
is pretty hard, which is in the entire Vindhyachal range. But basalt stone is having a very poor uh, quality of getting it carved because it's not soft. So what technique which they have developed to beautify the thing, they had used the material like for skeleton, one material that is basalt. For muscles, they had used another material that is sandstone. And for more fine carving, they had used material like chandan yellow and marble, which they were getting import from Rajasthan, because Rajasthan was also under them only. Only Chittorgarh, they were not in position to conquer because of the Rana Kumbha. Rana Kumbha and Rana Sanga is same, means the forefathers of Maharana Pratap. See, we are talking
yes, sir.
before Maharana Pratap era. Maharana Pratap
Yes,
was the time of Akbar, and what we are talking is before Babur. Huh? So,
yes,
except Chittor, all other area was under control of Mandau. So they used to import this material and used for cladding as well as for ornamentation and structure. Of course, they were having the local material available.
yes, sir. Sir, there is a question. What was the secret of having widely spread babu trees in and
Baobab trees.
around
Yeah.
Mandu?
Yeah, that is
Baobab tree.
Baobab tree.
Yes,
Baobab tree
yes, sir.
secret is a very interesting thing, that at the time of Mahmud,
Yes, sir.
in inscription, it has been found that they were having even trade relations with Arabs, uh, even Khalifas from Egypt. So Khalifas from Arab uh, they had traveled to this place via Gujarat, and with them they had come up with a fruit which is called it as an baobab fruit. That is called it as an Khurasan Imli. The basic name is Khurasan Imli, and Khurasan is a place there. So that tree is a totally imported tree, and somehow the climate here in Mandau is comparatively different from any other place. That is because of the absolute vertical right after the Arabian Sea. So that Khurasan Imli got their home cultivation here in Mandau. That's why you see that tree, baobab tree, in and around Mandau.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. I will just look. There are some more questions. Oh, so
Hello,
sir, I think
hello, ma'am. Pallavi, ma'am.
yes,
This is Srushti Pathak. Hello,
yeah.
sir. Sir,
Hello.
I wanted to ask you. I just recently went to Mandu in Feb 2020, and
Mhm.
it was like revisiting all the places from your presentation.
Mhm.
Sir, I saw so many structure in a dilapidated situation, and as you said, there are 61 of them, and as a I visited there only for 2 days, and I
Mhm.
couldn't see. I mean, no one can see and explore
Yes,
all the
yes,
61. And
yes,
in fact, I just came to know today itself that there are so many of them. Sir,
exactly.
is there any way that can we put back their old
Right,
situation or
right, right.
their old aesthetics back?
Yes. Only on that, we as an activist, we are working at that place, and we'll be needing people like you, where we want to identify all those buildings. As for example, when I was talking about Shikargah, so Shikargah monument is nearly 2 hours trekking journey to reach to that place. Mandavgarh is so big, and many ruins are at absolutely jungle corners. So there is no approaches available. So like Lal Bangla, Lal Mahal, there are the few buildings which are comparatively less seen. What happens that the major monuments which are there on the main road uh, are seen by the people, but there are few more good, beautiful buildings which are there inside in jungle or off the track. Now we are asking the government also to have approach to this place. We are asking also to have some type of an circuit route or a circuit map so that everyone can cover all these buildings which are absolutely not right on the main approachable roads. So architecturally it is rich, and architects somehow they find the way I said that Mando, another place is Budi Mando. We are working on Budi Mando also. That is again a treasure of Mysore architecture. That is again a fusion of two different types of styles. That is Nagara style and Dravidian style architecture, which is present there.
Thank you very much,
Yeah.
sir.
Sir, there is a participant Nazi from Afghanistan,
Oh, great. Mm.
and yeah, and they want to know. This person wants to know that what is the system of keeping the buildings cool in this region, and how it can be used in the modern architecture, which we have learned
Yes,
from these
yes,
buildings.
yes, yes, yes. Means that technique they had developed through one is through the type of jharokas and jalis which you see in Mando. See, those are in a particular shape. What happens? They study the wind flow. They used to orient the building in such a way that the water is coming from the water pond sides, and because of the conical shaped jharokas, the air used to get compressed, and that compressed air when entering inside cools down the temperature. That was one. Another was having a cavity walls with and water lines inside. What you we clearly see in Baj Bahadur Palace. It's a wonderful example that in spite of no electricity, no compressors, no other technology available, they had made use of right direction, right shape, and use of water for cooling down the temperature of the structure. The mashrabiyas were designed in such a way that winds used to flow in a particular direction and getting compressed and making use of water that also for cooling the entire wall through a
Yes, sir.
grid which was horizontal and vertical. That is very interesting. We'll
Yes.
like to invite him to this place so that he can see the techniques which has
Yes,
been
sir.
adopted. Mm.
Yes, sir. Sir, there is another question that how
Mm.
the level of both the talabs on both the sides of Jahaj Mahal were maintained same. Some Moonj
Yes,
Talab and yeah.
yes,
So what was the
there are,
technique of maintaining the
yes,
level same on both the sides?
that is very interesting. In Mando, there are not only one place, there are at least 3 to 4 places. They had the system of retention walls in such a way that overflow of Munch Talao is coming to Suraj Kund, then overflow of Suraj Kund is coming to Kapur Talao, and then it is passed by to another lake. So, because of the topographical condition, first they used to study the topography. They used to study
Yes,
the levels, and after
yes,
studying the level, they used to have the retentions done in such a way that they can control the water at particular level. So even in Jahaj Mahal, if you stand at Jahaj Mahal on if you are facing say north, on left hand side water is on an upper level, whereas on right hand side Kapurthala water is at lower level. And they used to have fountains also, which used to work on gravity, and
excellent.
that is also with the control, water control.
Yes, sir.
Very interesting.
Sir, there are many participants who are extending their thanks for the insightful presentation. And
So
now
nice of
I
you.
would like to take, yes, sir. I would like to take the opportunity to thank sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. So, a form of thanks for you, sir. I'm very thankful to sir for his excellent presentation, which was really a journey through the splendid structures of ancient Indo-Islamic period of Mandu. It was really an exploration of which was chronologically and stylistically befittingly done, which with a very rich description of structures connected to the socio-political times of that era. And I would like to thank our enthusiastic alumni of College of Architecture SVIT Vasat, who has been the link for connecting me to Natu sir, our very dear architect Kritika Majmudar, and Pooja Natu, who had been instrumental in arranging this presentation. I'm very thankful to our principal, Professor Sailesh Nair, who has been always supportive and has been a solid support behind me for arranging these webinar series. My colleague, Professor Taha Padrawala, and architect Garbit Nayak, who have relentlessly worked for me for making this presentation a success. And of course, our chairman Bhaskar sir, chairman SVIT college, and all the trustee members who have been very, very supportive in all the systems, may it be technical or may it be any sort of requirement which we have, they are always there for us. And then right now, I'm also thankful for the other speakers of this series, like architect Abraham Pathros, who has been very helpful to me to arrange this, and he has guided me through how to do it. Then architect Vipul Varshne, madam from Lucknow, and my own professor Savita Raje madam. These three webinars will be coming late after this webinar on 29, 2nd July and 4th July. And I request all the participants to please be present and have a very rich experience of the topics which we will be sharing with you, and really it was great. I'm very grateful to you, Natu sir, and I would sincerely wish that more and more youngsters get inspired to
Yes.
get connected with such activities, and I'm very thankful to Natu Foundation for making us realize that Mandu is such a rich cultural heritage for us. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So, Taha sir, can we stop the session? Sir, we'll be in touch. Thank you so much.
Yes,
sir.
ma'am.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, dear.
Thank you.